Welcome to Whispering Loudly, the award-winning Workshop Whisperer podcast, as featured by Apple, with Rachel Evans, the #1 automotive business coach in the aftermarket. Thanks to Platinum sponsor Podium, Titanium sponsor Mechanic Desk, and Diamond sponsor Ventavid.
Whispering Loudly is the Workshop Whisperer podcast, and Alex Dalrymple, he's a former radio DJ. In fact, we worked together many moons ago, or just a couple of moons ago. However, he had something of a career crisis in his 40s and rediscovered his love of cars and launched a new review channel on YouTube, 4 Wheels and a Seat. Alex has always loved cars. This is awesome. His mother says his first word was Merc. Your second phrase was fix my Merc. Is that right?
Yeah. And then, oh my God, I'm broke.
He focuses on the driving experience and the aesthetics of new cars. 4 Wheels and a Seat helps potential buyers get an idea of what to expect and what to look out for in a new car before taking it for a test drive. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Mel and Rachel. Great to chat.
That is one classic of an intro. So thank you very much for that. Is there anything outside of that intro that you'd like our listeners to know about you?
Well, look, there are a lot of very in-depth and very long car reviews out there. While I was sort of researching other channels to try and work out where I wanted to sit in the market, there are a lot of very good reviewers who go really into the nitty-gritty of cars and how they work and sort of, the different shaped valves and the compression ratios and all that kind of stuff, which is not stuff that I understand at all. I mean, I could try and talk about it, but it wouldn't be very convincing. And I kind of sort of thought, well, I really like cars, but I don't understand a big part of how they work. So how about a channel that is kind of aimed at people who appreciate cars, the way they look, the way they drive, the way they feel, the features, the technology, and maybe they're thinking of getting a new car. And I sort of figured that that's probably what the vast bulk of people are looking for when they're doing research for a new car. So I wanted to try and place the channel in that sort of realm rather than going into the in-depth tech talk, which I don't understand. And I don't think I'd do a very convincing job of pretending to understand it. Mind you, I am learning as I'm going. I'm certainly learning a lot more. But I do try to make it as user-friendly and keep it as broad as I can.
Nice. So when we were doing our research, we read a quick blurb about you on the Men's Health website that read, Alex Dalrymple, multimedia content producer, is a former radio DJ, as we just heard, who got through a career crisis by going back to school and learnt how to produce award-winning video content. Can you tell us a little bit more about the crisis and how did going back to school help?
Well, all through my early years, certainly from the time I was a teenager right through to my late 20s, I was really sort of hell-bent on becoming a big radio DJ. That was sort of all I wanted to do. I was just obsessed with radio growing up, and I wanted to be a big music jock, and I was influenced by Doug Mulray, who I used to listen to on Triple M in Sydney in the 90s as he was sort of just finishing up his career. And that was what I wanted to be. That was all I wanted to do. I effectively ended up throwing away my HSC just in pursuit of a radio career. I did do the HSC, just sort of barely cracked by. But I mean, as soon as I finished school, I actually did manage to get a a paid internship role at Triple M, and I spent a good year and a half there. Learning the ropes. And one thing led to another, and I eventually ended up at Nova in Sydney, where I worked with Mel. And once I got to about the age of 30, I just kind of thought, is this really what I want to be doing now? It just sort of, I felt maybe I was just beginning to age out a tiny bit. There'd been a big shift in the way music and popular culture was being presented on the radio. It had become very gossip and very celebrity, and it was less about the music. And I kind of just felt that maybe this isn't quite for me anymore. So sort of thinking about what I wanted to do next, I've been sort of always a diehard movie fan. I've been sort of thinking about getting into video production. So I started dabbling in that a little bit, just doing a few little odd jobs, mostly for my wife's company. And then that just started taking up more and more of my time, and I got more and more into video production. And now I'm a full-time videographer and producer. And that eventually led to Men's Health magazine, which I was at until Pacific Magazines, who owned Men's Health, was sold to Bauer, and unfortunately the magazine was wrapped up. It has reappeared, but I'm not part of that anymore. But unfortunately, myself, along with about 100 other people, were all made redundant. So during the middle of the COVID lockdown, I thought, I'd done a few car reviews for Men's Health, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I'd had some good feedback from the audience. And I thought, well, why don't I do this for myself? I mean, I'm one of those people who doesn't like to be not busy. So I launched Four Wheels in the Seat. I cut together a demo reel, mostly of the reviews that I had done for Men's Health, sent that out to all of the car makers directly. I didn't deal with any dealerships, but straight to the marketing and PR departments of car makers. And much to my surprise, probably about 75% of them came back and said, yeah, we'd love to loan you cars.
Wow.
And it's been non-stop ever since. I would literally get a different car every week. And it's been like that since mid-last year. And it's keeping me very busy.
Amazing. So along with Four Wheels in a Seat, you've worked with some pretty big Australian names since jumping into this content producing, such as Chris Hemsworth, Dylan Alcott. How did you land yourself them?
Well, they both go back to my Men's Health days. Chris Hemsworth was on the cover of Men's Health about 2 years ago, I think it was. And it was a big secret that we were going to be shooting. Actually, initially it was just going to be his wife, Elsa Pataky, for Men's Health's sister magazine, Women's Health, who I also did some work for. And literally at the 11th hour, we got the call saying Chris Hemsworth has agreed to do the cover of Men's Health at the same time that his wife was going to be on the cover of Women's Health. So the entire health team from Pacific Magazines ended up decamping up to Byron Bay for a few days.
Tough.
It was a tough gig. And we had one full day with Chris, and then we had one full day with Elsa, and it was a truly unbelievable day. They were both lovely to work with, both great people who were happy to have a chat and pose for selfies with all of us when we'd finished getting all the shots we needed with them. And it was a great day. And Dylan Alcott was also similarly awesome to work with. We had a very wet day in Melbourne the day that I was supposed to be shooting with him, so we had to come up with a last-minute contingency of where we were going to shoot because none of us wanted to be outside playing tennis in the rain, and we ended up sort of setting up a indoor tennis court in the car park of an advertising agency, and it actually creatively ended up being a much better video for that happening. So I'm quite proud of that.
Want to find out how the Workshop Whisperer team can put your auto repair shop on the path to business success? Head to www.workshopwhisperer.com/whispering loudly to claim your free workshop success session with the team.
It sounds like quite a varied former life that you had in the in that side of things. So it sounds like lots of fun.
Yeah, I like to do lots of different things. What I like about what I do now is that every day is different. My calendar is just full of just meetings and appointments, and every single day is something different. So I thought I liked the routine of full-time work, and I did for a long time there, and it scared me when that kind of abruptly came to an end last year. But in the last 12 months of being more of a freelancer, it's been really, really good.
And given that you seem to be interested in a lot of things and have many talents, how do you manage to blend them together to create your brand and the opportunities for yourself?
Well, I think having worked in radio, a lot of that has kind of bled into what I'm doing now. So working in radio certainly gave me a very good sense of audio and the important part that plays, particularly with video. I think that audio in many ways can actually be more important than video when you're watching something on YouTube, because the audience will hang around if they can hear you well. But if the picture's a little bit off, they're more likely to stick around. But if it's bad audio, you've lost them, and you kind of get away with slightly substandard picture quality. So I think working in radio gave me a good sense of that, and also just dealing with people, with talent, with, I hate this word, celebrities. They are used to being sort of treated and spoken to in a certain way, and I think after many years of doing that, working on breakfast radio, you kind of just do get a bit of a sense of how they want to hear things and what you need to kind of say and do to make it work for them. So I think in terms of directing people on camera, I learned a lot from radio. Yeah, and just the pacing also. I mean, radio is such a fast medium. Things just get turned around so quickly. So I think just having a fair idea of keeping things fast and punchy and to the point.
Okay.
Take a smoko and review us on your Apple Podcast app or wherever you listen.
Our clients at the Workshop Whisperer and the fans of this podcast are all auto repair shop owners. And one of their fears or their phobias is producing content. They feel like they're just mechanics and there's no way that they know what needs to go out there and the quality that it should be. So what advice would you have to have for them when it comes to the power of the content that they could put out there? Because it's in front of them every day. They've got work coming through their workshops. And, what benefit can it have for their business if they can get some out there?
I think just giving yourself time to make content, whether that be audio or video, if you rush it, it'll invariably lessen the quality. I think as much pre-preparation that you can put into it as possible really does improve the quality. So I know everyone's busy and everyone has work to do, but I think it really does pay off. Just set aside a little bit of time to prepare, get your microphones in the right spot, get your camera where you need it, get the lighting as good as you can if you're doing video, try and find somewhere quiet. And it's one of those things where the more time and frankly money you invest in this, the better the outcome every time. Like having a flair for how things should look is sort of really only 50% of it. You do need good gear and just a good amount of time to really make things look and sound good.
Perfect. So back to Four Wheels and a Seat. You're getting a loaner car from the manufacturers every week. Does that mean there's a review every week as well?
Yes. Yeah. The only times that I've missed that weekly schedule pretty much has been just over Christmas, really, when everyone kind of stopped. And I needed a break too, so that kind of actually worked out well. I try to time these things so that I have one car a week. Sometimes there's a day or two overlap. But the full production probably takes me about a day a week of shooting and editing.
Nice. And I know just from the reviews that I've seen, so even though I owned a workshop and I operate in the industry in this capacity, I don't speak mechanics. So I very much appreciated your non-technical jargon. And I know that, there's lots of wives that are listeners of the podcast who work in the auto repair shop but don't have the technical background either. So I highly recommend to you wives, jump on Alex's channel, Four Wheels and a Seat, and you'll be pleasantly surprised about what you can learn about each of the cars that he reviews.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, look, I've got 2 kids myself, so the practicality of a car is always very important. Somebody actually told me just yesterday that it's ridiculous that I go and put myself into the back seat of some of these cars because
Yes.
I'm 190 centimetres, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And most small cars are just not built for me in the back seat. So somebody said, well, you're not the average Australian. Why are you doing that? You say that the back seat's only good for kids. And look, that may be true, but there are going to be times when maybe you will need to put a tall person in the back seat.
Yeah.
But, and also boot space is another crucial thing that people think of because can I get a pram in there? Can I get the shopping in there? What if we're going on a road trip? What do we do then?
Yeah.
And so I always try to cover all of those bases with my car reviews.
No, I loved it. And I know our listeners will love it too. So jump over to YouTube for all of you out there, Four Wheels and a Seat. So Alex, thank you so much for jumping on Whispering Loudly with us today. It's been great to have you on.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Whispering Loudly, the award-winning Workshop Whisperer podcast, as featured by Apple with Rachel Evans, the #1 automotive business coach in the aftermarket. Thanks to Platinum sponsor Podium, Titanium sponsor Mechanic Desk, and Diamond sponsor Ventavid.